Anti-ICE violence in Dallas. Trump miscue on H-1B visa. Comedy tour. Well, sort of. This is Dr. David D. Schein for Saving America with my own take on key stories from the past week focused on politics and business. The stories keep rolling in, and I am running just to stay up with the action. Anti-ICE violence in Dallas. A sniper shot at a van operated by ICE agents in Dallas. No ICE agents were hurt, but two of the detainees are dead and a third badly wounded. As law enforcement swarmed the roof of the building where the sniper was, he killed himself. Apparently, he had anti-ICE things written on the rounds that were found with him. ICE is doing the work that was demanded by the majority of Americans after the disgraceful and dangerous open border policies of the Biden-Harris administration. There's no excuse for this violence. There have been violent protests at other ICE facilities around the United States. This is not going to help the cause of America, and it certainly doesn't help the Democrat Party. This fringe element is helping the Dems move lower in the polls. The Dems have not served the American people by their violent rhetoric. I suggest some sharp plaintiff attorneys look into civil suits against persons who have called for violence against specific people or groups that resulted in violence, even if it does not meet the high standards for criminal prosecution. This may be one way to tone down the violent rhetoric from the left. Note that Gavin No Sense on one of the late night TV shows discussed negative remarks toward ICE agents, and then the shooting took place the very next day. I do not believe this is a coincidence. And of course, Chucky Schumer and Hillary Who have made disparaging and negative statements over the last few years that may have been interpreted to directly encourage violence. At the same time, regarding immigration, I hope the GOP and the Dems will reach some compromise to allow those with no criminal record, a fairly long time here, and who have American-born children to work out a plan to remain here legally. America needs the labor, and it is not practical or financially provident to throw out many of those who are here and making a contribution. At the same time, I do strongly support all efforts to imprison or deport the many who are either escaped criminals from their home countries or have committed crimes here, or, of course, are members of dangerous gangs. All of those should be deported. We should also continue to support self-deportation efforts. Trump miscue on H-1B visas. One path for U.S. employers to get needed talent is the H-1B visa program. This is not an easy path. Employers must show there is a need to use immigrant labor. Then there is plenty of paperwork, including that the employer must promise to pay wages not lower than current prevailing wages for domestic workers, and there is no guarantee the slot will be approved by the feds. Many of those H-1B slots are in high-tech, medical, and research. Trump's plan to charge $100,000 per application for future H-1B applicants is contrary to the future of America. I hope the employers who need these workers will let Washington know in no uncertain terms that this approach must be stopped. Look, I'm not Pollyanna. There are abuses of this program. The fix is to enforce the rules as written, not kill the program with excessive charges. The above was tied to another miscue by Trump. One of the biggest political footballs in the last 18 months has been stopping the CCP's ownership of the popular app TikTok. Trump has announced a deal that would have a handful of U.S. tech companies buy 80% of the app, and then the CCP would be down to 20%. Full disclosure, I'm not on the app and have no plans to join it until the CCP is out completely, not just down to 20%. I do not trust the claims that all handling of the app after the sale will be domestic and somehow they plan to ensure that the CCP is not pulling the data of everyone who uses the app. My concern is backed by the Heritage Foundation. Saving America has featured some of their researchers as guests on recent shows. Comedy tour, well, sort of. Not again that everyone needed to see her or Tim Walz. Kamala Harris is promoting her book and about how badly she lost the 2024 presidential election. Yep, that's right. A person who was a terrible VP to a terrible alleged president is running around bragging about how she ran through over $1 billion in 107 days. Famously, she helped sink her election run when, during a softball interview early in the campaign, she claimed she would not change anything that Demented Joe and herself had done. Obviously, not learning from past mistakes, one of her first big interviews she did for the new joke book continued her claim about supporting Biden's policies. What she has done is to generate a ton of negative publicity from conservative media, none of whom plan to buy the book. The irony of this book is that she had enough true statements about Biden that many Dems are bad at her as well. So, from my perspective, this is a win-win-win. The only bigger joke is the Demented Joe's book advance. Rumors are that it could run to $10 million. Now, why would any publisher fund that large in advance to someone who obviously could not write a book at this point due to his decline? Inquiring minds demand to know. And how unpopular is old Joe? The rumors that I am hearing is that his presidential library fund is in big trouble. Bookmobile, anybody? Anti-Semitism on the world stage. Sadly, a number of America's allies have recently called for recognizing a so-called Palestinian state. In his recent speech before the UN, Netanyahu explained clearly that such pronouncements would reward this terrorist group for its actions. In turn, he has offered to return the hostages, to spare their lives and let them live in exile as opposed to killing them off one by one. I would remind the terrorists and anyone who has forgotten that after the terrible terrorist attack on the Israeli athletes during the Olympics in Berlin, the terrorists were hunted down one by one over a multi-year period until all of them were dead. The question becomes, why would these otherwise rational countries take such an anti-civilization position? One theory is that these countries are now bowing to political pressure in their own countries from radical extremists that they have foolishly allowed in their own countries. First, Israel does not care and will not change its commitment to achieve safety for its citizens. Second, the winds of change are blowing, and patriotism and concern for their own cultures is producing a broad conservative movement. I predict that the governments in those countries will begin having conservatives elected. The policies will then mirror what has happened in the United States. Flipping back to the United States, former FBI Director Comey indicted. From the couldn't have happened to a more deserving clown file, the former FBI director who was fired by Trump during his first term has been indicted on allegations of making false statements and obstruction. This was related to some of his testimony about the so-called Russiagate situation. While I'm not a big Trump fan, I knew for the first time that this was brought up that it was a hoax. Putin would never want Trump in the White House versus having a loser like Hillary Clinton. The evidence against her, personally, in my opinion, is much more compelling than the evidence against Comey. Perhaps Comey is only the tip of the iceberg. I can attest to the fact that many conservatives, MAGA people or not, want actual prosecutions to begin, not just talk. As a footnote, I'm laughing as the Dems who have utilized the legal system for roughly a decade of oppression against Trump and his supporters may finally be facing prosecution. They are squealing like pigs on the way to becoming bacon. Ryan Ruth found guilty. Fortunately, being stupid does not prevent a person from facing criminal charges. Ruth is the oddball who is accused of setting up a sniper's nest near a golf course where Trump was playing. Fortunately, the nest was discovered by the Secret Service before he could shoot down anyone. My understanding is that the evidence against him was compelling. Obviously, the jury agreed. The comedy show here was that Ruth represented himself. His antics were crazy. Frankly, I think he was trying to set up an insanity plea or at least diminished capacity. His opening statement was a total non sequitur. After being warned by the judge, he was eventually cut off, I believe only 7 minutes in. The rest of the trial did not go any better for him. We lawyers have a phrase: an attorney who represents himself has a fool for a client. That applies to non-lawyers as well. Budget shutdown looms. Chucky is not the brightest bulb, and his unreasonable demands to allow a temporary budget deal are not going to advance the Dem cause for sure. My understanding is that the Dems want to reverse the GOP's attempted to clean up Medicaid, and they also are demanding free medical care for illegals. Being a member of the majority of Americans who work for their medical care, nobody I know favors giving medical benefits to able-bodied persons who could work and earn their own medical care. That same majority do not want free medical care for illegals. The Dems are in a less than 20% position on these slots. It is disruptive for all to have a government shutdown. Sadly, it does not save any money in the long run. So most Americans do not want a shutdown. This would seem to be a bipartisan issue. Speaking of shutdowns, Kimmel returns to ABC after only 6 days. My commentary on this is that he shed some fake tears and did not apologize for his earlier statements about Charlie Kirk's assassination. As I've said earlier, I oppose government censorship. The left is still trying to decry his suspension as government censorship. Hey, it's about the money. That is still true. This was another stupid decision by Disney, the formerly great producer of children's and family programming and the operator of amusement parks. I've been boycotting Disney for over 5 years, and I do not plan to return until they show some consistent smarts. On the positive side, 2 major owners of a total of 71 ABC affiliate stations have continued to air news coverage instead of his show. Good for them. It should be a decision that the stations make in any event. Beyond Israel's Iron Dome. While some missiles do get through the Iron Dome protecting Israel, it is generally very effective. However, it won't work much for larger land masses like the United States. It can also be a very costly system to operate. On the very positive front, Israel has announced what it is calling the Iron Beam. This is a system that uses a concentrated laser to knock offending items from the sky. Right on the heels of this announcement, there was a strong suggestion that this could be used to protect Ukraine from the drones and missiles that are being sent by Russia at its civilian population. I'd like to add that I hope such a system will soon be installed in Taiwan. This would let Xi and the CCP know that there would be no easy conquest of Taiwan. The U.S. and the Israelis have current excellent anti-missile defense systems, but the use of those systems generally requires very expensive missiles to be shot at the incoming drones or missiles. As an example, when Israel defended itself from an Iranian attack in June, in just a few days, 200 interceptor missiles were launched at a cost of roughly $1.5 billion. The Iron Beam will be much less expensive and hopefully even more effective. And who doesn't like a good animal story? Arnold the Goose is released into the wild. I credit the CBS affiliate in Boston for this story. So Arnold the Goose hurt his foot and was taken to the New England Wildlife Center Cape Cod branch for surgery. Shortly after he arrived, his mate, named Amelia, was knocking on the window to let Arnold know she was waiting for him to return. Maybe she was trying to keep an eye on him, make sure he wasn't chasing any of the other goose or ducks or whatever. In any event, after recuperating for a few weeks, he was released and Amelia was waiting for him. The two flew off to their usual pond. The center indicated that 2 geese have been a couple for at least several years, and I hope they have many happy years to come. This is Dr. David D. Schein. Thanks for joining me for this special edition of Saving America. Remember, a new Saving America show is aired on the Brushwood Media Network every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Listen on any of the 16 network stations, Apple or Google mobile app, Apple CarPlay, TuneIn, Smart Speaker, and all smart TVs. Find more information at the brushwoodmedianetwork.com. Please be sure to join us each week. We welcome and love your feedback from our growing audience.